Welcome back to the Change Physician podcast. I am Dr. Melissa Cady, joined by my co-host, Dr. Kevin Cuccaro, with our lovely guest, Dr. Jen Tang, who is an internal medicine physician who's done acupuncture and has a really amazing story related to direct sales, and we'll get into that once we get into the story. But thank you for joining us, Dr. Tang.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is fun.
Good. Well, we like to start from the very beginning, and just a lot of us have a similar answer, but we want to hear from you. What was the reason you wanted to go into medicine in the first place?
You know, it's funny. Growing up Chinese American and the first generation being born here, I was very anti being a doctor growing up because I think that was the assumption, right? And I remember my cousins when we were young saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a doctor," and I'm like, "Well, you're just doing that because your mom told you to." So
Right.
I was I'm going to make my own decision. I'm not going to be a doctor. Come to find out in college that I loved biology. I was fascinated by how the human body works. And I thought, well, I'm going to go into research because, I'm really going to contribute in that way. I spent a summer internship in the lab and I realized I really missed people. And I didn't necessarily have the patience to wait for lab results, for those long-term study results.
Right.
So funny enough, it was really in sophomore year of college that I realized, I guess everybody was right. I am meant to be a doctor. But I feel proud that I came to it in my own decision, not because it was an expectation of me.
Yeah. Well, great. So as far as your expectations when you're in it and you're actually in medical school, were there any idealistic visions of medical school that suddenly got shattered, or, did that happen later, or where did you see that?
I hate to say it, but in medical school, what I found was that some of my classmates were extremely cutthroat, and it wasn't what I was expecting at all. I'm kind of this naive kid going into it thinking like, hey, we're all here to help people, and let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya together. But that was not necessarily the mindset of some of my classmates. I mean, luckily there were some awesome classmates that I ended up locking arms with and collaborating with. But I guess that was my first glimpse into hey, it's not all what I thought it was going to be. And in addition, my now husband and I met very early on. We met freshman year in college. And so we decided to live together in the medical school years, even though we weren't married yet. And that was also something that, was looked upon as a negative. A lot of my classmates are like, you're spending an extra, hour a day commuting when you could be studying instead. And, I think I've always realized that, family and having a personal life is going to be very valuable to me. My husband and I have always agreed that family was going to be number one. And I think I realized early on, because of these sorts of comments, that I wasn't necessarily going to be following the traditional path of, a lot of the others, were in the mindset of, let me just, achieve, get to the top. And I was like, well, there's other things to me that are priorities, like spending time with my, future husband. So I guess early on, I wasn't afraid to be a little bit different, even though to me, it doesn't sound like that radical, like living off of campus, but some people thought it was.
And I just got to comment on that. If someone's listening to this by audio, it's not like you're 60 years old. I mean, that's what it's like, no, we're not living in the 50s. You didn't go to medical school in the 50s where someone would say, right, "Oh my God, you're living in sin."
I'm 45 years old. It's okay to say it. So, yeah, this was in the early 2000s.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So funny. So you're in medical school now, and you have some experiences. Maybe definitely some medical schools are more cutthroat than other. More classes can be more cutthroat depending on what class is being admitted. But then you go into residency. Why did you choose your specialty, and in what was the path next, I guess?
Yeah, I going through all the rotations, what I found is that I really want to know everything about the person. I wasn't, I loved ophthalmology, but I remember, you know, when you look into the eye and then I want to know about their diabetes and I want to know about like, what do you eat and what's your lifestyle like and all of those things. And I knew that I wasn't going to be happy with the mindset of being limited to one organ system. I really do tend to have a holistic approach when it comes to a person and their medical care. So I decided that I wanted to do internal medicine, and that, you know, I really wanted to be able to approach my patient with this collaborative mindset where, you know, let's explore all the things going on in your life. Like, let's explore how we can improve your health from, you know, multiple different aspects. So that's what I think appealed to me about internal medicine, primary care. I just love the idea that my patients could look to me as the first person that they go to when they have something that worries them. I wanted to be that person for them. So that was why I chose to go into internal medicine. I forgot if there was another part of your question.
No, but that sets up the second half really well, right? Because I, you know, in an ideal scenario, that's what your primary care physician would do. They would be your trusted advisor who could see the whole person. I'm just curious though, when you then went into practice, what did you discover about primary care?
Well, so when I first started my practice, I actually got into a very good situation. I partnered with 3 doctors whom I had previously done some, you know, training with, and they, you know, had a small group private practice, and so they took me under their wing and showed me the ins and outs of business and private practice, and I was actually very happy there, and had, you know, a good amount of autonomy with how I treated my patients. It was mostly a geriatric population. So I think I learned early on in my career how to deal with very complex medical issues, multiple medical issues, and how to be able to keep them out of the hospital as best I, you know, as safely as I could. So I really appreciate that training, because after that, you know, most of the other things seem easier. You know, so we were dealing with very, very sick and complex patients. And I'm really grateful to have begun my training that way. And, you know, there's something so endearing about the relationships that you have with the geriatric population. They have so much wisdom and perspective to offer. And then they really start to develop this trust and this relationship with you that's beautiful. And sometimes they want to spend so much time with you because they're retired and they have all the time in the day, and you don't necessarily, but it's so sweet. It's really sweet.
Yeah. And so when you're in the private practice and you're predominantly doing geriatric work, was there a certain particular time or something that happened that shifted your private practice?
Yes. So at the time I was, you know, I grew up in New Jersey. At the time I was living in New Jersey and practicing in the central Jersey area. And we saw a few different shifts that started to happen. So this was the mid 2000s or so. And one was that a lot of the big hospital systems were buying up the small practices and making it very competitive to stay alive as a small group practice. You know, and then hospitals were emerging, so they were becoming these big powerhouses. At the same time, my senior most partner, who is a cardiologist who contributed a great deal financially to our practice, decided that he wanted to retire. So the other 2 partners that I had decided to go into concierge medicine to supplement, because we did not want to become one of those factories where it's all about the volume and it's just, you know, how many patients can you get in and out. And so to protect that time, my partners decided, you know, well, we need some sort of other income to rely on, and that's going to be for them concierge medicine. And, you know, while I completely respect their decision, I don't think that was the right decision for me. You know, I really felt like I became a doctor to treat all comers and be able to care for anyone. And I really didn't want to limit my practice to only a certain population who could afford to pay out of pocket a certain amount. So I decided to go to what I call the dark side and, become a hospital employee. And I thought, well, it's something different. It's a nice situation. The people seemed friendly. At first I thought it was great. I had paid time off, which I never did in private practice. You have, a department for HR. You have people to copy things for you. You have people to fix the computers for you. I was the youngest, partner in my medical practice. So I was basically the IT department, my computer's not working, Jen, what do I do? So at first I was like, well, this is great. We have all these support systems and I think that over the 3 years that I was there, I really did see a shift from it, from having the people in administration know my name and know who I am and understand my value to, what happens when you get a third party company to come in and say to the hospital, because the hospital wasn't doing great financially. And so the third, party company comes in and they analyze the finances and they say, this is what you need to do. And then, that's always bad because then the shift comes to, productivity and how can we, and focusing on the bottom dollar over quality of patient care. And that was extremely disappointing and frustrating to me.
And that's another thing. I know people are finding that over and over again. It's ridiculous how hospitals and healthcare systems, they get these consultants to come in and give these recommendations. And basically what the recommendations are the same crappy model applied in the same crappy way in many different geographic locations without actually thinking of how we can, it just blows my mind how they just get these third parties in to design.
And those people don't have any experience in clinical practice. No. They don't understand what it's like to take care of a patient. They're just looking at the numbers. And our patients are not numbers, and our doctors and nurses and all the, workers who are in the office are not numbers either. But we all started to feel like we were numbers, It was very disappointing. And I feel like if you looked at my patients and you spoke to them, I have such great patient retention. Some people came from my private practice to follow me to where I was. So I had some of those patients for 10, 12 years. They really valued me. They valued my opinion. But to them, I was really just about the productivity number, the RVU, right? So it was, oh, Jen, you're spending too much time with your patients. So if you don't speed it up, you're not going to get your bonus, right? And that puts me in a very tough position. I have 3 boys. I want to do the best that I can for my family. But I also, signed an oath to do the best that I can for my patients. And how can I, balance those two when they're saying, okay, well, if you don't speed it up and spend less time with your patients, you're not going to get your bonus. I was so angry. I was so angry about this situation that I, got to the point where I was like, well, is this what it is? Did I choose the right profession? Because this is not, I'm not able to deliver care the way I thought I was going to be able to. Not to mention, okay, so that's the pressures from, of course, the hospital. And then you have, of course, every time you prescribe a medicine, they come back, oh, it's not covered. You have to do a prior authorization, or every time you want, something done, you have to fill out extra paperwork to get it done. It's like every day, everything that you want to do for your patients is a battle. So I got very frustrated.
Yeah, so this obviously became a slog, dealing with all these issues, and you evidently made a different choice for yourself. When did that happen?
So there were 2 things that happened, one right after another. Well, I guess the first thing that happened was that I was, I'm pretty vocal about my feelings. I'm not very good at hiding how I feel. So people around me, my friends, started to realize that I was unhappy at my job, that, even though I felt so strongly and passionately, still felt like this was my calling, but I was so unhappy. And, in my mind, I'd been on both sides of the fence. I had been in private practice, and I had been an employed physician. And, most of the time when you think about your options, those are the two options that you think about. Mm-hmm. And so I started thinking, like, what are the other options for me? I still feel like this is my calling, but I don't know what to do. So this is completely, not anything I would have ever expected in my life. But one of my friends, asked me, hey, would you be interested in looking into this business called Rodan and Fields? And, honestly, I was just so miserable. I'm like, sure, we'll just talk, and I'm sure I'll, end up saying no to her. But, at least it'll give me some inspiration. Maybe it'll spark something in my brain. Yeah. But she's a good friend, and I trusted her, I trusted her judgment, and she's not even in medicine at all. She's a professional dancer. Mm-hmm. So I think, the more I heard about this other option, it sort of, not only did I think that this was a good option for me, as that I did my research, and I realized, okay, this is a real legit business. I totally had my preconceived notions, but I am one to seek information, and I'm one to not believe what other people say. I have to research it myself. And so I did, and I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty impressive, actually. This is something legit. This is something that is from, created by some really well-respected people, and has, been written up in news articles for the business, for the products, and, all of those things. So, and then I had also done some research and heard about other colleagues, physician colleagues, who were part of this business and were actually using it to create more freedom in their careers. And I think not only was it about the opportunity itself, but it was about what you all are talking about right now, realizing that I didn't just have those two options of private practice and being an employed physician. There were other things I could do. Like, who knew? I mean, I spent basically my whole adulthood learning to be a doctor. So I didn't really, thought that there were other things I could do, but I was like, I could do this. I love people. So talking to people, no problem. That's a plus. That was something I was missing in my job, because I was being pushed to see people so quickly. I wasn't being able to have I had to tell myself, okay, don't ask about the family. Don't ask about work, because you're just gonna get behind, that's not me at all. And so I welcomed the idea that I could have a different sort of source of income where it was about building relationships. Mm-hmm. That was amazing to me. So, like I said, I did my research, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do this. And, I'm the type of person that I'm just like, if I'm going to do something, I'm just going to go all in and do it. So I was really pleasantly surprised at how it went. And I think it is because I just love people, and I do have really strong relationships. So I think when somebody, and people know that I'm a pretty cautious person. I'm not a type of person to just like go do something careless. So I think that, when you like, people know how you've led your life before, they trust you when you make a decision like this, or you make a shift like this. And so I was really pleasantly surprised by, the fact that we were offering a product that I think a lot of people wanted and loved, and then fell in love with and became loyal to. So that was some residual income coming in. And that people were, I think, proud of me that I decided to make a change in a difficult situation. And so this basically was the process of me opening my eyes to other options. Yeah. And so 6 months later, I decided I was, felt the confidence to leave that job that I was where I was really unhappy. Mm-hmm. And I joined I contracted with a tech startup, medical tech startup, to help with help to improve outcomes of underserved patients in Trenton area. So I actually got a chance to go into homes of underserved patients in Trenton. And, a lot of people were worried about me going. It's funny, Princeton, we lived near Princeton, and Trenton's only, like 20 minutes away. We're like neighbors, but it's, viewed as an entirely different world. So everybody I knew was like, oh, are you sure you want to do that? Wow, it sounds scary, and my parents were very worried. I mean, their parents, they're always going to worry about me. But I really felt a calling to do this. I felt like this is exactly the opposite of what we were doing before. Before, what you hated about your job was that it was all about the money. And here is some place where we're serving people, and it's certainly not because of the money, right? So I felt like that was where I needed to be. And it was, I will say it wasn't necessarily academically challenging. A lot of things were standard screening, prevention, but it was such a wonderful education in understanding all of the psychosocial complex issues that are barriers to healthcare in that patient population that I don't think I could have ever understood sitting in the clinic, because you go into the houses, you see, what's in their kitchen, you see that they, an elderly patient is in charge of taking care of their grandchild all day because the parent is at work. You understand that they may not have transportation, that they might need to rely on someone else to pick up their medicines for them, or that they might not even be able to afford their medicines. It was just such an awakening for me. I'm glad that I had the opportunity to learn from that experience.
Yeah. And so you're a consultant is that what you're still doing right now?
No, because that was in New Jersey, and
Okay.
2 years ago we moved to Southern California.
Ah, that's right. You're in the LA area,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
So I guess I would say this, this is not just career changing mindset, but it was like an entire life changing mindset, because my husband and I both grew up in New Jersey, and we sort of assumed that we're going to spend the rest of our lives in New Jersey. But then, with this more open mindset to other possibilities, one day we woke up and looked around ourselves, and I said, my parents are retiring in Florida. Your parents are retiring in California. Why are we still stuck here in the snow? So my husband is a film director, and his dream has always been to come out here to the LA area. And he's stuck on the East Coast for me and my medical education. So I said, let's go. And this was a crazy idea that I never would have had the mindset to do. I was born in New Jersey. I spent 43 years of my life in New Jersey. I didn't really know anything else. And I couldn't have imagined myself making this decision, several years prior. But we were in the right place, and we said, you know what, let's do it. And so it was one of those things that was meant to be, because we got here and we were all so happy. My 3 boys are very active, and they we all love the fact that we can be outdoors all of the time. It's been wonderful for my husband's career. And I think what was really beautiful in the transition was that, I didn't mention, we adopted our 3 boys from Taiwan when they were babies. They are now 8, 11, and 13. So, we expected that besides the regular issues that come with the big transition, there might be some extra challenges for them that go along with the fact of their adoption and their sense of security, So I really wanted to make sure I could dedicate myself to helping them have a smooth transition and feel safe and secure in our new home. So when we first moved here, I came without anything except for my direct sales business. I did not have a medical job lined up. And, it was nice to be able to have that freedom to be just focused on my family for a while and make sure that my boys are okay before looking to what's the next thing I'm going to do. But, after 9 months, I really did start to miss patients. And something just fell into my lap. Like I said, everything about moving here to California, I felt like it was absolutely meant to be. So a colleague that I had connected with, fellow physician in the area, said, one of our doctors has been out on medical leave, and if you wanted to look into this opportunity, I'm pretty sure they would let you make your own hours. And that certainly perked my ears up, because I was definitely looking for something part-time that I could still, have some attention to my family. And I found out about it, and it turned out to be a federally qualified health center. So I don't know if all the listeners know of what that is, but it is basically a federally funded clinic that is geared towards like underinsured population. So a lot of my patients are on the free LA County health insurance. And I thought to myself, well, this is definitely meant to be, this is the patient population that I feel very fulfilled working with. And then for them to say also, you can make your own hours, I'm like, this sounds perfect. So that's where I am now. I'm actually only working 2 days a week. And then I have my, my direct sales business as a supplement. And then as you know, I'm a fitness fanatic. So I have my time for my personal workouts, and I have time to really feel like I, can be available to my boys in these critical years. I really feel like, this age is different from when they were little. When they were little, we had a great nanny who did a great job for them, and she had more energy than I did. So, but this age there's some complex emotional issues that I feel like they need their mother around. And I'm really, really grateful that I'm able to do that.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kevin. Are you?
So much to unpack there. There's about 3 different stories, and unfortunately we don't have time to tell them all, but I just love it, because I'd love to go deeper into your, how you chose direct sales, because I'm sure people are hearing the word sales and they're probably freaking out. Oh my God, I'm not a salesperson.
Right.
Everybody's a salesperson. The fact that you transitioned into, when you were contracting with that startup, really going into like social determinants of health. I think there's a whole nother topic right there, the FQHC topic, which I think is also another one. But I want to focus, since we don't have a ton of time, on just those mind shifts that you had, because you sort of alluded to it, is once that transition first occurred, meaning, I was dissatisfied with the private practice, I'm in the hospital group, I'm seeing how this is morphing into a different way, you made this active choice to change. And it's just neat to hear all this downstream effects. So could you talk about that a little bit, when you first had that, that transition to deciding a new path? Were you always one that could just do that easily, or was this something new to you? And if so, what would you tell to somebody out there who may be too scared to change?
That's a really good question, because I do think that I've always had somewhat of a type A personality and a do what I'm told and follow the rules in general. I think most of us physicians are sort of wired like that. But at the same time, I have to credit my parents for giving me the confidence to, to just not be complacent with the situation. I think they really raised me to say, if you have if you're dealing with an issue, don't just sit there and complain, do something about it, And I mean, I really admire my parents, because they were each the first ones in their family to come to this country. They didn't know each other. They didn't know anybody. So I think that, they kind of paved the way for me to say, it's okay to do something different from the people around you. And you have to just know yourself and your own priorities. And like I said, I wasn't a complete stranger to that, because I always knew that family would be my number one priority. And that was not necessarily the case for all of my colleagues in medicine. And having gone through, infertility and pregnancy loss taught us that we can't expect to always do things the traditional way and expect the outcome that we want. We fought hard to build our family and had a beautiful result, but it wasn't, how we had planned it out. So I think sometimes you get, now in retrospect, I can say sometimes you get the most wonderful results when things don't necessarily go as you planned.
Yeah. Yeah, and you made me think about just some of the issues that you discussed when you were an employee, and how just your values and the alignment or the lack of alignment with, I think, without knowing you that well, it just seems like you're you're driven by, you know, these ethical and moral type of responsibilities to patients, and when it starts rubbing the wrong way and it's not aligned with what you feel is right, that sometimes I think it makes us question if this is the right path. And I think sometimes it might just open the crack of the door a little bit to maybe peek into something else, which you obviously did by a trusted friend. So, you know, I think that says a lot about why you're where you're at now. I think that there's moments where something doesn't feel right, even if you can't put your finger on it, and it just doesn't feel fulfilling. It doesn't bring you a lot of joy. Even if you want to still be a physician, you're in a place that's not in alignment with what your core is. So congrats on creating, you know, a family and a life and a new environment for all of you to really enjoy a lot more than perhaps what that other path could have been.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's not really a question, but just some reflection.
No, I appreciate
But
that.
you had to verbalize it, right? Because
I did, because I can, you know, I can appreciate it.
I think you know what's interesting, and Kevin, you touched upon the fact that, you know, some people say ew when it comes to sales and things like that. But the funny thing is, I think the people who are open-minded enough to actually take a look at it and take it, you know, like take it seriously to research it. You know, this group of people are some of the most inspiring people and intelligent, hardworking people that I've met. And I think some people might be surprised to hear me say that, given that I'm a physician. But, you know, these are the people who are open-minded enough to question the path that they've been told all along, and to be open to a possibility of something else. And I think that, you know, similar as what happened to me, others I've seen, you know, that I'm just inspired by the fact that most people doing this business are not just doing one thing, or it allows them to do more of what they're passionate about. It's not necessarily that they're that they grew up being super passionate about the product that we offer, or, you know, anything like that. It's just that it gives them the channel to be able to focus more on what their true purpose in life is and what their passions are. And that is different for everyone. And it's so beautiful when you see everyone, you know, living out what they feel is their true purpose. So that also drives me when it comes to this business that I have. It drives me in allowing, you know, other people that opportunity, or helping other people be successful, to give them more choices in their life. And it's funny because I think, you know, we all go into medicine thinking, oh, I want to help others, right? Like, that's the cliche. And it's true. I wanted to help others. And I never thought that this, you know, business that I have, this direct sales business, would be another way of helping others. But, you know, when it comes to patient care, I'm limited by my geography. I'm limited by, you know, the patients who have access to me. And those are the people I can help. I'm very grateful. But like, this opens up, because it's an online business, it opens up the opportunity for me to help so many other people, and other people who might not have had the same educational opportunities as I had, you know, other people who might not have had the same advantages as I had growing up. So I love that this can be another channel for me. I've discovered another way for me to fulfill that calling of helping others.
Yeah. And I wanted to just comment on that again, because people have this dirty word associated with sales. And what I would emphasize over and over and over again is every person is a salesperson. And if you're in clinical practice and you're trying to talk to your patients and motivate them to change, that's salesmanship.
Yeah.
So, you know, rather than turn up our noses and say, oh, sales, that can't be something I can do, I'm not a salesman. It's like, really, actually, we are all salespeople. And if you are interacting with any human being, this would probably be beneficial to you. And so I loved how you kind of went into that journey. And just very quickly, because we've been tossing around the word sales and direct sales, can you explain a little bit more about that model for someone who maybe now they're like, oh my God, okay, maybe sales isn't a bad thing. But I don't know what this direct sale thing is. Could you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's interesting that you said that, Kevin, because I found that, I thought going into this type of business that I know nothing about sales. I'm only a doctor, but you're quite right. And my conversations with people are very much like my interactions with patients, because I look at every interaction as like, is there a way that I can help you? If you can be benefited by what I have to offer, that's fantastic. If not, it's okay. We can collaborate on other stuff, or, we could just have a relationship. That's fine too. So just, I guess, in a nutshell, the idea behind direct sales and the product that we used to offer actually was previously in high-end retail stores and, your Nordstrom, Bloomingdale's, that sort of thing. But they intentionally transitioned to online direct sales because, number one, they saw that people were going into high-end stores less frequently and more people were buying online. And with social media picking up, everyone is really taking the recommendations of their friends who actually use the product and can genuinely recommend them, rather than just, an overpaid celebrity saying that they use it when they really don't, right? So so that's, I think, the theory of why, direct sales has picked up recently. And so basically what our company did was took all the money that was previously in their advertising budget, which is a large budget, and transitioned that to commissions for brand ambassadors, for people to recommend the right products to people. So we do get a very, I guess it varies based on the company, but I feel like we get a very generous commission of anywhere between 25 to 32%. And then optional is if you want to, build a team and coach a team to do the same. The idea behind that is that, you are like, let's say Starbucks, right? So, one coffee shop can only sell how many cups of coffee, right? And then that's it. If you work really, really hard, you can make a great earnings with just one coffee shop. But the more coffee shops you have, the more opportunity you have to reach more people and sell more coffee. And so that's a similar idea as if you build a team and coach somebody else to be able to be successful in this business, then you can earn a percentage of their sales, which doesn't come out of their pocket, but it's a bonus from corporate to realize that if you hadn't introduced it to them, they wouldn't have, those customers. And so that's, I guess, in a nutshell, how you can build a passive residual income over time, even if you work in very part-time hours around, I'm busy. So I really was busy when I first started this, not so as busy. I'm more flexible now, but I do it on my phone. I do it on my laptop. I do it around my kids' schedule. So, and it has been, the most rewarding part to me has really been, coaching other people to be successful, to see their full potential, to realize that they have some skills that they didn't know they had in them, because they weren't trained for this either. But, the more they put themselves out there and realize, what, like, this is something I can do. It's fun to see people blossom, and then to see as they grow in confidence, that little seed of other possibilities comes into their head. Oh, wow. Like, I get this extra paycheck. What could I do with this? What else could I, what doors does this open in my life? Does this give me more choices to either do something new or not do something that you were previously doing because you're not happy doing it? So that's, it's been amazing.
So how do you tend to get the word out other than word of mouth?
Yeah, good question. So I think it's quite variable. Mm-hmm. Some people use social media quite a lot. I did, build a lot of my business on social media in the early days because I was very busy. I was working full-time in the office, doing internal medicine and acupuncture. I had a side job as a fitness instructor, and my 3 boys were really little. So I didn't really have time to get like in-person gatherings and stuff like that. So it was a lot of word of mouth. It was a lot of building relationships online. And I'm not a type of person that I can't do cold reach outs. Like, I can't just say, hey, do you want to buy something from me? Or, hey, do you want to join? I'm not at all. Like, I need to get to know the person. I need to get to know what they're about. I need to know, like, how can I help you? And then let's work together to figure out if something I have to offer is a good solution for you. So, it takes time, it's not instant, but it's been an amazing journey. What I've gained along the way is an extra family that I didn't expect from it. I did this because I thought it was a smart business idea. But I have this amazing, it's mostly women, so I'm going to say sisterhood, but some men too on my team. But it's so different from that initial impression that I had in med school, when I'm like, wow, some of these people are cutthroat. It's the opposite. Nobody's competitive. We're all in it together. We support each other. And I think that's what's beautiful about the business model. There's no limit to who reaches the top. In fact, if you are dedicated to helping other people be successful, the business model is created so you'll be more successful. And and so I think the business model lends itself to people who love to help others and collaborate in that way with others. And so I am so grateful for some of the people that have come into my life through this business that I wouldn't have ever met. And now they're some of my closest people that I rely on a daily basis for support and collaboration, and just, sometimes just leaning on them for regular life stuff.
Yeah, I think it makes us realize as physicians how much our culture needs to change, and how much gratification we get from putting ourselves in other areas that lend itself to that collaboration. And not that it's not there in the physician culture in pockets, but the system has kind of put a crunch on that. And I think that it's, I found a lot of gratification reaching into different areas that are so not medicine, but I agree. It's so great where it's a win-win situation, and it's just so much more. There's so much more connection when you're in those environments, unlike how the medical system has been doing that to us. But Kevin?
Yeah. So thank you so much for talking to us today, and we don't want to take too much of your time, but I just want one little flip here, because we've talked about medicine and then direct sales. Mm-hmm. I'd be curious on how your experiences with direct sales have influenced your interactions in your FQHC, or if you've seen that your learning about sales and learning about that interaction have either helped or hindered your patient relationships.
I don't necessarily feel like there's been much of an influence. I guess the only thing that I can say is I think it's the opposite, I would say, because I think that when you work with many patients in a given day, you start to understand that different personalities need different ways of communicating. And that if you're going to get your patient to agree to take the medicine or to agree to certain changes that you want to make for their health, you might have to approach one person differently from another depending on who they are and what where they're coming from. And so I think as a physician, you get, or especially in my role, you get very good at reading someone's personality pretty quickly. And I think that that's actually served me very well in my direct sales business, because I can read someone and try to quickly extract what are they needing from me, where are they, so that I can meet them where they are and give them the information that's going to be helpful to them.
That's fantastic, and just kind of is useful to the listeners to hear is actually your skills as a physician may transition very well into other areas that you may not even think are on your radar to start. So again, we thank you so much for talking to us today. But if do you have a specific place where if people want to talk to you about just your life's journey or direct sales or anything else, where could they find you?
Yeah, I have a link tree that I can send you the link.
Okay. That'll work.
It was like a link tree. What's a link tree?
It has all their different social media.
Oh.
Right? It's basically a link that has all the other links that are relevant to me. And, and just to mention, I've been doing some fun stuff on the side too, just because of the relationships that I've built, like this, for example, some writing for online websites. And I was recently interviewed for an article for the Washington Post. So it's been fun to explore other things, and just have the ability to have these other opportunities, because I am in a business where it's about building relationships.
Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you again for joining us today. And thank you everybody else out there. Thank you for joining us on the Change Physician. I hope you pulled a lot of useful tips out of this one. I did. And it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. And until next time, guys, stay well.